Can we call the Buckeyes machine-like, automatic at this point? Welcome into the voice of college football. Appreciate you stopping by for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. Based on your contributions, please leave your comments and questions down below. Join us each and every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, post-game or 10 p.m. Eastern Time, the college football show late night. Ohio State 38, Penn State 14. It's a given at this point that Ohio State defeats Penn State. Sometimes it's in the final waning seconds of a Penn State blown lead in the fourth quarter. Sometimes it's a blowout. Sometimes it's without James Franklin on the sideline. Ohio State has won all but one, 13-1, since Urban Meyer stepped on the field in 2012 against the Nittany Lions, despite Penn State, of course, being a top 10 program in the country during that time. The Ohio State situation, obviously, moving toward postseason play. It's all about 2025 for the Buckeyes, for about Penn State. The story is, how is this program, how is the administration going to move forward? What is the selection of a head coach going to look like toward 2026? The Nittany Lions playing out the string, but they've got a bunch of proud football players on the current roster that wanted to step up in Columbus and show that they are still a talented football team, and they are, but the Buckeyes are put together pretty well at this point. 38-14 for the number one team in the country. Jim Knowles, supposed to be, and we talked about it here, and I thought that it could be a factor. You take him away from Ohio State and its national championship success, where he came in, rebuilt the defense, and really raised the level of play on that side of the football for the Buckeyes. Take him away, replace him with Matt Patricia. Then, of course, Jim Knowles goes to Penn State, goes to a rival in the Big Ten that's looking to take that next step that was locked and loaded, was the talk of the offseason, being locked and loaded, the next in the succession line of the Big Ten champions. Michigan 2023, Ohio State last year, Penn State using that formula to have a big breakout season and finally win a national championship for James Franklin. Of course, that did not happen. It all fell apart, and nobody could have foreseen this. But Jim Knowles is still the DC at Penn State. So would Ohio State put one on him? Maybe a little vengeance there, or Jim Knowles a little vengeance in the opposite direction? Though he was certainly paid rather well by Ohio State. He's the number one paid coordinator in college football. But on the first drive, it was noted by Joel Klatt that despite all of that experience in facing Jeremiah Smith in practice, let alone game film and game study this season, Jim Knowles opted to go one-on-one, and just to play it straight up, on the first couple drives of the game, and Jeremiah Smith tore him up on those first couple drives. Actually, the Buckeyes, basically the first two drives of the game were just methodical. They were just perfect. They were a thing of beauty marching down the field. Now, Jazz Coleman, freshman, really good player in the middle for Penn State, with a quarterback hurry, forced the field goal on the second drive, so the Buckeyes led it at 10-0 at that point. And let's continue on that vein with the Ohio State offense. Let's talk Buckeyes offense going forward. Okay, first, we started the season famously against Texas, and Julian Sayin was going to be protected. I'm not talking about protected in the pocket by the offensive line. That, of course, is needed, but protected by Ryan Day's playbook and Brian Hartline's playbook. Sorry, Freudian slip there. Brian Hartline's playbook. That we want to be a running team. We want to lean on what could be the best defense in the country this year. And again, establish a running game, even though we lost Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, who I believe to be the best combo in college football. I thought that was the huge downgrade to be concerned with this season from 24 to 25. And it's still, I would say, I've been on the mark there, because despite the efforts of Bo Jackson, we'll get to him in just a second, that's where the Buckeyes still have to sew some things up to become a more certain toward the end of the playoffs. So for the Buckeyes, again, protecting Julian Saint from a play calling standpoint early in the season, but bringing him along. We first really saw it against Minnesota as the Buckeyes opened it up against the Gophers, 42-3 game there, started to open it up downfield, and then against Illinois, they were more methodical on the road against what was expected to be a tougher game, tougher opponent, grinded out that win. opened it up, really played to their advantage against Wisconsin, taking shots downfield. And that's what they've done progressively, more and more as the season has progressed. And lo and behold, as we entered the game, Ohio State didn't have the most prolific passing game in college football, but the most efficient passing game. Number one in pass efficiency, number one in completion percentage, and in the top 3 in the country, save the military academies who rarely throw it, in terms of passing yards per attempt. So really just airtight in the passing game, 80% completion percentage. Julian Sayin increased his completion percentage, coming in at 79.5 on a 20 of 23. He was phenomenal in this game. The deep ball accuracy, tremendous. So this has moved from let's lean on C.J. Donaldson. Hopefully we've got a complement in James Peoples, maybe Bo Jackson. Bring along Julian Sayin, who only threw, I think, 20 passes against Texas. A number of those dropped. You saw a disjointed passing game by Ohio State standards. A disjointed passing game early in the season, but they are clicking now. And he just gets better and better and better. And the pass protection has been, for the most part, pretty excellent. But when it hasn't, he is showing some escapability as well. But the downfield passing for Ohio State in this game against not a 3-5 football team. Yes, technically you are what your record says you are. 3-5 football team at Penn State. Still, I thought that this was a wild card game and a wild card season and a wild card opponent for anyone to play in playing Penn State. But they still got the athletes out there. They still have a number of NFL players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But it was mighty impressive to watch the Buckeyes operate, and specifically Jeremiah Smith, 6 catches for $124 and 2 touchdowns. Carnell Tate, he's emerging as he's been a star. Superstar. One of the best wide receivers in the game. 6 catches for $124. It's basically the same stats. He had 1 touchdown, as Ohio State, again, was just phenomenal in the passing game. Now running the football. Did not run it exceptionally well. Now, when you've got arguably, and I believe to be the best defense in the country, and the best passing game in the country, still arguable, but who can really contend with his passing game when you put together the pass protection with the tight end position that is so deep? We saw Will Kazmarek, we saw Bennett Christian catch a touchdown, and of course, Max Clare is the best of the bunch receiving the football. And then, of course, the wide receiver core, the best. They rarely throw to the backside of the backfield. That's something that was a staple of the Ohio State offense with Travion Henderson and others, but don't really need it in this offense. So how good does the running game need to be? It needs to be better. This team right now could win a national championship without the running game being better. But to solidify the odds on their side, the running game needs to be better. Bo Jackson, the stats look pretty. 13 carries for $105 and a touchdown, but he broke that 51-yard run off the left side late in the game that set up the crazy Jeremiah Smith touchdown. You saw it. Deflected by the Penn State linebacker who was right in the passing lane, deflected the football, knocked it up in the air. Jeremiah Smith just one-handed it, touchdown, and that was the final score of the game. So that's the concern, obviously, still for Ohio State. Again, we look at the rushing numbers, and they look decent. I always like what I see out of Isaiah West. He only had 4 carries today for 13 yards, but he is coming along as a possible change-up factor in this offense. And again, the distribution of the carries are about what we're going to get used to in this one. This was still a game at halftime. It was quite interesting because the Buckeyes came out at 10-0, but then Penn State put together a nice drive. They got creative. I love how Mark Ingram told us about 18 different ways, basically, that they got Nick Singleton in space at halftime. That was quite the soliloquy that went on for 3 minutes. That was basically one statement, but I digress. Nick Singleton in space. and he's really had a rough year at Penn State. I feel for guys like this, Drew Aller, Nick Singleton in particular, who come back, who could have gone high in the NFL draft or relatively high in the NFL draft, come back, things don't work out, whether it's due to injury or poor offensive line play, or they just didn't have the play calling go their way. So Nick Singleton has definitely taken a back seat to Kaytron Allen this season. It's funny, Nick Singleton came into the program as the 5-star, the guy, and then Kaytron Allen jumped up. Certainly wasn't a lowly regarded player, but not the superstar blue chip guy that Singleton was. And Kaytron Allen has slowly and progressively become the number one back in this offense. Interesting stat is Singleton had scored the touchdown to make it 10-7. So on a 3rd and 6, they threw him a shovel pass. That actually was to Kaytron Allen, I believe. The Kaytron Allen shovel pass that converted the 3rd and 6 in the red zone. Then they had the touchdown on the sweep where they overloaded the line on the left side to Nick Singleton for the touchdown. 15 play, 75 yards for Penn State. And at that point, and especially after Penn State shoved in the next touchdown, which we will highlight here in just a second, I thought, well, they've solved something about this Ohio State defense. People were wondering, me included, how is Penn State possibly going to score on this defense? Well, 14 points, 2 touchdowns at half, but they only finished with 200 yards of total offense. So the Buckeye defense was still stout. The standards are just so high. Interesting to note, after the Singleton touchdown, the number one touchdown scorer in college football right now, in terms of career touchdowns, Nick Singleton's number 1, Kaytron Allen's number 3, number 2 is C.J. Donaldson, the top 3 scorers in college football playing in this game. But again, we bring up Donaldson, and of course he's the guy that fumbled away the Buckeyes 17-7 lead. Stacked up at the line, short yardage play, really not C.J. Donaldson's fault, fighting for extra yardage. I don't know what you're really supposed to do in that. It was not one of these, like, I'm extending to the goal line or extending to the first down marker and kind of being foolish or careless with the football to a certain extent. He's got it wrapped up. He is a highly fundamentally sound player, but man, he was just munched at the line. And of course, he's going to fight and try to push it. The refs extended the whistle. He was not going anywhere. He was going backwards. They could have blown the whistle sooner. They did not, and the ball was stripped away. So really good play by Amari Campbell against C.J. Donaldson right there. So Chaz Coleman picked it up and ran it inside the 15-yard line, and to Penn State's credit, they did push it across for the touchdown. That was the Kaytron Allen shovel pass for the touchdown, or to get it close, and then the touchdown, 17-14. So Singleton with the first touchdown, Allen with the second, 2 of the top 3 scores in college football currently from a career standpoint. So 17-14 at half, and that was after the Buckeyes had it set up. They had stopped Penn State. They had 17-7 lead, get the ball back with 2 minutes left. You figured they're going to drive, probably go up 24-7 at half, but no, Penn State fights back for Terry Smith, and they had a shot going into the second half, but the Buckeyes squelched it early. Carnell Tate blows by 2 defenders. The corner was to the outside, the safety inside. The safety picked him up. Incredible statistics shown by Fox during this game that on 10 throws to Carnell Tate, plus 20 yards in the air, 9 of 10. 9 of 10. If you complete 35 to 40% of your throws plus 20 yards, you're pretty effective. 9 of 10 to Carnell Tate. As he took it away from the defender, was slightly underthrown. C.J. Donaldson with the touchdown, 24-14. It was good to see that they gave the ball back to C.J. Donaldson in the short yardage situation, so Ryan Day not giving up on him. And again, I do not fault him for that fumble. Kenyatta Jackson had himself a day with the sack on the next drive, so the Buckeyes get some breathing room and then instantly snuff Penn State. They get the sack and the punt. Again, Kenyatta Jackson had himself a day. He was excellent in this game. Then saying to Smith downfield, this thing was a thing of beauty. First of all, it was pass protected like perfectly. Perfect pocket. Like if you were going to show what a pass pocket looks in football from an aerial view, you would draw up this play and just show this play. Julian saying like he was in practice, stepping up, delivering it, and it was perfect. And Jeremiah Smith runs by two guys. He's double covered at this point, runs by both of them, drops it right in there, and that gets the Buckeyes down to the 21-yard line. And then a remarkable stat from Ohio State's national championship season last year was that there were no offensive line holding penalties against the opponents the entire regular season against the Ohio State defensive line, which proved to be the best in the country. That almost seems incredible. You're playing the best defensive line in the country and you never hold them? Likewise, we're into the 8th game of the season. No pass interference calls against opposing secondaries against Ohio State's wide receivers. And technically that still holds up because the one that was called back, and they took the personal foul call on Julian Sand instead. Plus the first official one was in the third quarter, and it was against Will Kazmarek, a tight end. So it wasn't even against one of the Fleet wide receivers. Bennett Christian with the touchdown, and the Buckeyes led at 31-14. And then we talked about the incredible Jeremiah Smith one-handed deflection catch. Again, Bo Jackson had a 51-yard run to set that up. Buckeyes win it. And quickly on Penn State, interesting dynamic here because it is the transfer portal era. You would expect a ton of these guys to flee. And obviously a number of them, it was a veteran team, are going to the NFL draft. So this Penn State team is going to look much different. But for the guys that are thinking, hey, I may stick around, this is big game tape for them to show the incoming coach, who should be a top flight coach. You're not firing James Franklin to bring in, I was going to say Matt Rule. He just signed a contract extension. But I never thought that Matt Rule would be or should be a candidate. So you got to bring in a top flight head coach. So for anybody who wants to stick around, obviously, they are playing for a position. They are playing, got to play for pride. Hopefully these guys are playing for pride. It looks like Penn State still is putting a strong effort out there. All right. And Ethan Grunkenmeyer, maybe he sticks around. What a difficult place to put him. Drew Aller gets hurt. Grunkenmeyer comes in. The first 3 assignments for this kid, redshirt freshman, you've got Iowa, the number 2 defense in the country, playing them on the road. Then the number 1 defense in the country, playing them on the road in Columbus. And then they face Indiana next week. So Grunkenmeyer, it was obvious at times that he was not in sync with the receivers. It was a bit clunky, kind of like I talked about with Sayin and the Ohio State side, although not to that degree. Of course, Aller's received all the reps, 80% of the reps probably in practice, where Grunkenmeyer steps in now, although he has been in the system for a couple years and under the current Penn State offensive coordinator, Andy Koldenicki. So Grunkenmeyer, 19 of 28, did throw a pick in this game and acquitted himself pretty well. Penn State was able to run the ball against the Buckeyes fairly well on occasion. So they play out the string. It's more about who's going to be the next head coach, of course, for Penn State. And they're now 3-5 for Ohio State. They got a date in West Lafayette against Purdue. Of course, the horror of that 2018 game when the Buckeyes blew their playoff shot against Purdue. But they've been there since and won a couple blowouts against the Boilers, who were playing the maize and blue on this day. Appreciate you being here, the Voice of College Football. Comments and questions down below. Join us for the College Football Show. It's every night, Monday through Saturday. The ladies of college football take over here at the Voice of College Football on Sunday nights. The Amazon link is in the description section of this video. Down here, description section, Amazon link. Use the link that we provide. It doesn't mess up your Amazon account. It works perfectly with it. You still get credit for everything. Please use the Amazon link that we deliver down below. Right here at the Voice of College Football.